Hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil Live by Mike King. I wanted to just take a minute and visit with you about a couple of cases. One that I didn't plan on until just a moment ago when the news popped up, and that is the autopsy results have been completed in the Tammy Daybell case. And I wanted to just chat a little bit about what that means. And then I wanted to talk about the Donthe Lucas trial that's going on with the case of Kelsey Schelling. And you'll remember her. That's a really important case, I think, that's going on right now for a couple of reasons. So I want to take just a minute and say hello to some folks and acknowledge a few things. So Ranch Du Bois, thank you for joining up. Food Whisperer, I'm kind of overdressed for today, but I just got out of a meeting and I'd read the news and wanted to jump on. I really appreciate you all jumping on with me. And Wendy Grimstead, hello. Kamarka, I love your comment. Sorry if it feels like clickbait. I just don't really get into that stuff. But I want to acknowledge your comment there and say that I think there's actually some significant things happening in this. So we'll see. And you can always choose to not hang in there. Tony Tsunami, Chris Noyd, Glowing Ember, thank you. And for those who are moderating tonight, thank you for this. We're not going to be very long. I just want to cover a couple of things that I think are pretty interesting. And I may actually come on a little later with something. I'm waiting to hear back from someone. Bridget Rising, thank you. Stephen, thank you. And again, to all of you who support me on Profiling Evil, thank you so much. So let's talk about, first and foremost, the autopsy results on Tammy Daybell that have come in. And I thought this was really interesting. If you have caught any of this, we have been waiting for months for this report to come back. And a couple of interesting things. One is the autopsy was completed by the Utah Medical Examiner's Office for this case in Fremont County, Idaho. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if any information leaks out with between those two states as this rolls out. But the autopsy results were released yesterday. The sheriff actually released a statement, and I want to pull that up real quickly here and just show you the statement where he indicates what their plans are in this particular case. And let's see here. Oops, sorry, I got the wrong photo up there. Here we go. So the press release from the sheriff, Sheriff Lynn Humphreys, just frankly is pretty self-explanatory. Yesterday, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office received the autopsy reports on Tammy Daybell from the Utah Medical Examiner. The contents of the report will not be made public at this time, as it is evidence in an ongoing and open investigation. We will release the information soon. And the reason why I thought this was so significant, folks, is if you look back at some of the other autopsy results that have rolled out in this case, Joseph Ryan, Alex Cox, we immediately were told that there was nothing nefarious going on from those investigations. And we may either choose to believe that or not believe that there's nothing that's been going on. But what I found so interesting in this one is that they say they're holding on to it. And I've talked about this before, that this would be very wise for the prosecution to hold all of this. And again, get through this first trial before they bring up another one, get the testimony that's going to come out in this first trial in the coming months out and on the table and on the record before it comes out. So that would be my thought in here. And based on your counsel and notes to me, I'm going to just kind of slow down a little bit now, because I sometimes want to just deliver information and look and see if there's some questions here that I can answer and maybe just chat about this a little bit. But I wonder from you, and maybe you could weigh in here what your thoughts are on the unique way in which they're releasing this information, saying we're not going to tell you what's going on. And I want you to, again, compare that to Joseph Ryan and to Alex Cox as we talk here. I'm going to look through some questions. So let's see here. Press release was today. That's from my understanding, and they received the report yesterday, and this just broke in the local news. So if that helps, and again, hello to a bunch of you: Nana Wulon, Kimberly Mack, Pamela Deemer, Ashley Dean. Thanks for jumping on. Sweet Home Alabama, Miss Sophia. Great to see you all. I'm just looking to see if there are any questions before we continue that discussion. Again, to me, I think the thing that is really interesting here is number one, they're keeping it really tight. They're keeping tight-lipped and they're keeping it close to the vest. Number two, they're not saying we've discovered there's nothing. Now, there may not be anything, but if you think about it, in Joseph Ryan's case, they came out quickly and said, no, we think he died of natural causes. In Alex Cox, they came out pretty quickly saying, we think he died of natural causes. So to me, I think this is kind of significant. And, we might get proven wrong. There's a question here from Glowing Ember asking if they did find poison. Let's see. Let me pull this up. If they did find poison in Tammy's autopsy, will they revisit Joe, Alex, and even though they've already retested? I think that's really kind of an interesting question, Glowing Ember, because this is why it's so important. And you hear me harp on this time and time again about the fact that there are traditional forms of evidence, things like these forensic pieces of evidence that we're seeing in cases like this. Eyewitness testimony is one of those traditional forms of evidence. And circumstantial, and I'm going to talk a lot about circumstantial in just a minute. But when we introduce behavior into this, it really becomes this kind of fifth form of evidence that generally is not talked about a lot. And I think we're going to have to look at the behaviors in totality and see how they measure out against. If they find poison, obviously they would want to go back and see if those poisons were in the other bodies and overlooked. And of course, I don't know the answer to that. But anyway, it's really interesting to me that they've done this. Let's see. Wanda Kassan says, I think most of America is waiting on Tammy's autopsy reports. Yeah, and that the delay is making it public will serve to make Chad Daybell sweat. Well, certainly if he's guilty of doing something, it will certainly make him sweat. I would hope anyway. But that'll be interesting. Question from Dolly Dampman, this is a long shot. Do you know if the FBI retired man from San Francisco by the last? Oh, do I know? I'm sorry about that. No, I don't know that fellow. Probably a great person though. It will be interesting to see. Let's see. Well, there isn't a lot more to talk about on that. And what I really want to spend some time in is the fact that I don't know, and I'd like you to weigh in here, if any of you have been watching the trial information unfold in Kelsey Schelling's murder and disappearance, or if you're even aware of Kelsey. And if you're not, I hope that this will serve as some kind of impetus to get you to look at that case, because it is a really interesting case in and of itself. And let me just, I want to pull that up and show you a picture of Kelsey and then talk about that case for a moment, because I have really been captured by that particular case. And for those of you who don't know this young woman, I'll pull up her picture right here. It's kind of hard not having the back office doing all this for me. I actually you have to rely on me to actually work the buttons here. And here we go. So this is Kelsey Schelling. And it's really interesting because 8 years ago tomorrow, and I think this is really significant, and Half Rudder, thank you so much. That is really kind. And I appreciate it. Yeah, I got my tie on and I tried to clean up today for everyone. But 8 years ago tomorrow, or I think even as late as tonight, 8 years ago, Kelsey Schelling disappeared off the face of the map. And this little gal was living in Denver, Colorado, but she actually was involved in a relationship with a guy who it's suspected murdered her. Kelsey disappeared off the face of the map somewhere near Pueblo, Colorado yesterday. And yesterday, the trial began for her boyfriend and the presumed father of her unborn baby. And I don't know, I want to see if any of you have weighed in on that and if you've seen the information on this one. I think it's a really intriguing case. And while you're doing that, I'm going to just check something here on my phone that I've wanted to get some information on. So let me just see. One question from Charlotta Rumholt, if I got that right. Stahlberg Rumholt. Guten Tag, ich bin Michael König. Do I know statistics on how many women have disappeared? And I do not know those statistics. I know that the numbers are crazy. Okay, just one second. I had to flip on a picture that I had to see if I could get a better understanding of something here, but it may not help and may not make a difference. But anyway, let's get back to Kelsey. So back to where I was trying to start. 8 years ago tomorrow, and I think maybe even possibly tonight, Kelsey Schelling disappears off the face of the map somewhere near Pueblo, Colorado. And if you've been watching any of the news, yesterday, her former boyfriend, an athlete named Donthe Lucas, began his trial for murder in her case. Now, he is the alleged father of her unborn child, and again, started yesterday facing charges for murder. This is going to be an entirely circumstantial criminal case because this woman's body has never been found. It's really troubling to think about this. And we've talked about this before, about the fact that reportedly there are some 800,000 people who disappear every single year in the United States alone. And I think it's probably consistent in many countries around the world. Those that are less developed, I think the numbers are probably much higher. But out of those 800-ish thousand people that disappear, roughly 87% of them are going to make it home. But that means that every single year in the United States, there are 103, 104,000 people that disappear. We never hear from again. We don't find their bodies. We don't find anything to tell us what happened to them. They just absolutely are taken from the map. Think about that. 104,000 is more than most of this is larger than most of the cities that many of you live in. So imagine wiping an entire city off the map in 1 year. Now with COVID, we've seen 400,000 in the U.S. So 4 years worth of missing people that have been taken from us. It's really mind-boggling at times. But in this case, they've built a circumstantial case. And I think about cases like Suzanne Morphew, And the fact that we haven't been able to see the prosecution step forward and go forward with a prosecution in a circumstantial case, this gives me a lot of hope, because this is a nearby county, a nearby district in Colorado, and they're going forward with a circumstantial case. Now, the last 2 days, the media and anybody that's wanted to see this case have had to watch it from a room because of COVID-19. There's only 9 people, I think, in the courtroom. And so it's really an interesting case, because it's one of those, like Daybell, that's being covered in the media. Ms. Tammy 125, thank you so much for that kind donation. I appreciate it. This case came to Profiling Evil almost 3 months ago by one of the Profiling Evil family members through the evidence room. And if you haven't taken advantage of the evidence room, please do. It's simple. Just go to profilingevil.com and click on the link for evidence room, and there you can go in and leave information. I started working with that investigator several months ago. This investigator broke the case. It wasn't done. It wasn't broken by law enforcement. They obviously did their part, but it was because the family became so frustrated that they went out and hired a private investigator. And I'm going to just introduce him as Shane. He's trying to get the family, and if so, we're going to jump back on maybe later, Kelsey's mother, to talk a little bit about the case and what they did. But I just, hats off to him. And together we've been able to look at a bunch of the location information and other details around the case. It's been really interesting to watch. And now to see it starting to unfold in court, I can talk about it more freely. But Kelsey started dating this boy named Donthe Lucas. He was an athlete in college. Kelsey, beautiful young girl. They had what many friends described as a toxic relationship. And many of you know exactly what I'm going to describe here, but he was demeaning to her. And yet for some reason, she kept hanging in there and trying to make the relationship work. They broke up, and she left college and went to Denver and started working. But somehow the relationship rekindled, and they got together. And Kelsey, in the early part of 2013, became pregnant with Donthe's child. Now, she's convinced it's Donthe's child, and there are a number of things that support, in fact, that it was. But in early February, on the 3rd of February, she went to her doctor, and she had an ultrasound and had proof that that little tiny baby was growing inside of her. The first thing she did was she went out and she texted her mother and Donthe, the father, and sent them a picture of that ultrasound and said, you know, we're having a baby. And she was excited. Well, that evening she went to work. The next evening she went to work, and she started receiving a bunch of text messages from Donthe, who was saying, hey, I want you to come and see me tonight when you get off work. I've got a surprise for you. You're going to be really happy. Please come and join up with me. And she kept saying, what's the surprise? What is this all about? And Donthe continued to say, oh, no, you're going to be really excited about this. Just come and get the prize. Well, this kid gets off work at 10 o'clock at night and jumps in her car and makes a 2-hour drive to Pueblo, Colorado, intent on seeing the father of her baby and hoping that somehow they were going to have a happy get together. Along the way, she pressed for more information, but she only receives text messages back from him saying, hey, the surprise is going to make you happy. Well, she makes the drive. It takes her, I think she must have been speeding a little bit, because it takes her about an hour and a half to get there. She arrives at the meeting spot where he described he wanted her to meet on February 4th, 2013 at 11:20 p.m. They meet in a Walmart parking lot. And I thought this might be helpful to just look at it on a map. And so let me just pull up this little map here and kind of give you a feel for the area. So on the 3rd of February, we can see here Kelsey, living in Denver, finds out about all of the baby coming and everything else. She communicates and she makes the 2-hour drive down to the Pueblo area. And there she meets with Donthe, or she's supposed to meet with Donthe in the parking lot of the Walmart. Now, when she gets there, she sits for nearly an hour in the parking lot waiting, and Donthe never shows. About an hour passes, and she starts texting about how unhappy she is about waiting. And he says, "Oh, I've been here all along. Meet me over at this location." And so he takes her from the Walmart over to this location and tells her he wants her to come and meet him at the corner of Manor Ridge and Kestrel, which is apparently near where his grandmother lives, in a place that he was staying. When we looked at her text messages, she made that trip over there and says, "I'm now waiting here and I don't see you." And she waits another hour. And during that time, he's texting back and saying, "I am here. Where are you?" Eventually, the two get together. Now, this is according to Donthe in testimony that he gave to law enforcement. And in that testimony, he says that we talked. We decided to go to a hospital to have her tested one more time. And they go to a hospital just north of downtown Pueblo. And there, Donthe says that she has a test, and she comes out and says, "I guess I was wrong. There's no baby." And he said they then spent the night in their car together, her car together. And the following morning, she left, and he's never seen her since. Now, there were some terrible holes in this story that popped up as he talked, and things that law enforcement was able to uncover in the course of the investigation. And those red flags were pretty simply, number one, that the manner in which she was texting and responding were different than her personality. This is when we start talking about the importance of behavior. I'm wondering if, in fact, she met him at the appointed time of 11:20 or 11:30 in the Walmart, and then something happened. He took control of her phone and started creating something to suggest that they were communicating back and forth. Now, cellular traffic and the location of that mobile device will give us much more information that will unfold in the case to tell us where, in fact, they may have actually traveled. But what we do know is that in checking with the hospital where they apparently went and got their other test, the hospital and all of the cameras around the hospital confirm that they never came there and that there was never any kind of test. That evening, or the next evening, Kelsey's mother reached out to Donthe, who seemed less than enthused to talk to her and less than concerned that she had not been in communication with her mother for over a day, something that happened on a regular basis. That was a really big red flag. The fact that she was never at the hospital was a big flag. The fact that she was brought from Denver down to meet with him is a really big flag. And so you can start to see how powerful this circumstantial case can become. And I want you to think about, again, the Suzanne Morphew case. Circumstantial cases can be made, and people can be convicted in circumstantial cases. And I'm just really pleased to see this prosecutor being willing to go forward in this case from a circumstantial standpoint. Now, yesterday, as the court started to unfold, again, Lucas has been charged with first-degree murder in this case. It's a circumstantial case. There's not a body. Now, there is some physical evidence. In fact, one piece of evidence was pretty important, and that was that both Donthe and Kelsey's DNA was recovered from Kelsey's car when it was found 10 days later in a parking lot in the Pueblo area. But here's where I thought it really got interesting and to me exciting, and that was in the opening statements, the prosecutor told the jurors, quote, "This is not a missing persons case. It is a homicide case." And I think he sent a clear message that the state is prepared to go forward in this case and that they're going to go after Lucas for killing Kelsey Schelling. Now, he was also trying to make it very clear to the jurors, the prosecutor I'm speaking of, that Lucas tried to get Schelling to Pueblo, and there's evidence to support that she went to Pueblo because her vehicle was later recovered there. Now, it's kind of interesting because there are some text messages that originate, and Kelsey's phone goes dead in Denver. So makes me want to wonder if maybe Lucas made the trip to Denver and picked her up, and in their car, something in between Denver and Pueblo happened, and then he just dumped her car in Pueblo where he lives. But what we do know is that her phone goes dead in Denver and the car is recovered in Pueblo, again, some 2 hours to the south. But the prosecutor reminds the jury yesterday that he says, "I've got a surprise for you in Pueblo." And so I think it probably makes better sense that she actually made the drive herself. Now, the fact that his DNA was recovered in the car is explainable by the defense because he says we got in her car and we spent the night in her car. But things really got interesting yesterday afternoon when the prosecution called a former jail inmate, a cell inmate of Donthe Lucas's, and put him on the stand. Now, his name was Ryan Rivera, and Rivera testified that Donthe told him, "Investigators will never find Schelling's body, and they're never going to be able to convict me." Now, that's a pretty amazing statement to have introduced, and the fact that they introduced it in day one was really amazing to me, and I think just really powerful. Now, another really big moment came when Kelsey's mother, Laura Saxton, talked about trying to communicate with Kelsey on the 4th. When she learned about the pregnancy the night before, she said Kelsey was incredibly excited, and she said that she too was excited once she got over the disappointment of the fact of how things were happening. But she said she tried to communicate with Kelsey throughout the 4th and into the evening, and Kelsey's messages were not like they were normally. They were very curt, very short. And I think it's really important, again, from a behavioral perspective, to think about the fact that they were not the same. Saxton testified that she wasn't happy with the police department's investigation, and that's why she leaned upon this private investigator, Shane, and the fact that he was able to uncover things that brought the case together. But I wanted you to just kind of hear Kelsey's mom talk about what the impact of this has been on her. So let me just pull this up here.
Unknown.
The fact hasn't changed that, we don't have her and he's not talking. So I have a lot of fear for the rest of my life, having to live like this.
The defense said the story outlined in court is.
I don't know about you folks, but this is what incenses me so much in these cases. And it started to talk a little bit about what the defense team did. The Lucas defense team called this trial the biggest reach in Pueblo's history, saying prosecutors didn't have a weapon, a cause of death, location of murder, or the location of the body. And folks, I think that's really the crux of what I wanted to just chat about, is the importance of recognizing how hard it is to prove a circumstantial case, and what powerful evidence they must have in this case to go forward with a circumstantial case in the manner that they are in this case. So let me see if there are a couple of questions I can answer, and we'll talk again as we learn more. Again, I think Kelsey's mom is going to come on with me at some point, and the investigator who I've been working with on this for some time is going to come on, and we'll chat a little more about it. So, and you know, I've talked before about domestic violence and the fact that it doesn't get better. And I just want to say it one more time. It doesn't get better without real intervention. So if you know somebody who's struggling with that, or they're in a position where they're being threatened, get to a medical or mental health provider as quickly as possible, or call your police department and lean upon the police department. There is a cadre of professionals who are ready to help in these kinds of cases. So the physical evidence so far, I'm going to let it kind of roll out in the case. I think there is some really good physical evidence. There's physical forensic evidence in the form of phone information, not only in text, but in the GPS of the phone itself. Is the case televised anywhere, Half-Rudder? It's not being televised live, which really frustrated me, because I think it's going to be an exceptional case, again, because it's a circumstantial case. But please light up the internet searching for Donthe, Donthe Lucas, and Kelsey Schelling, and you'll see some really great reports on this case. And kind of goes with my question the other day about why do some cases get so much attention and grasp us, and others just remain quiet. Wendy Grimstead, is it possible that he took Kelsey's phone back to Denver and shut it off and just dropped it off the beef? Absolutely. That's the real challenge here. Is, to me, there are a couple of scenarios. Kelsey most probably wanted this relationship with Donthe and wanted him to be in her baby's life. And I believe she probably made the drive to Pueblo and met him there. The troubling part is her phone does get back and has some pings that are in Denver as well. And so we have to resolve, did the actual place where they came in contact, and you've heard me, if you go back and look at some of my previous videos about the locations of crime scenes, the first location is the initial contact spot. Was that at the Walmart in Pueblo, or did Donthe make the trip to Denver, and did the initial contact spot where those two came together actually occur there? Then where does Kelsey die? That becomes the actual crime scene, and it could have been anywhere in between those 2 points or in surrounding areas, and there is a lot of area to consider. And then if her body is ever recovered, where the body disposal site is, or the crime scene where the body is left. And so we have to kind of continue and look at those. A lie detector test, I don't believe that he took a lie detector test, Shauna, but not sure. Let's see, who is responsible for pressing charges? Police, the DA? So great question. So law enforcement's responsibility is to build the case and present it to a county attorney or a district attorney. And Colorado has district attorneys. And so they would have been the governing agency that would have placed the charges and brought those out. Now, in a civil case, a lawyer, like we've seen in cases like O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown, that those cases can be brought in civil kinds of ramifications or civil hearings by a lawyer. But anyway. AK, nice to see you. Truth is nonfiction. I like that. And AK, thanks for your support, and thanks for keeping people on their toes. So, are there any other questions that I might be able to answer in regard to this? Again, going back, no intentions to do anything goofy other than to share with you my thoughts in this case. I hope you'll watch the case, and I hope you'll blow up the internet with questions about it. This little gal deserves to have her case investigated. Bogey 708, have cadaver dogs checked her car? I don't know. Again, there are so many things that law enforcement has kept close to the chest, but I have seen some of the interviews done by the Pueblo Police Department, and I think they conducted good interviews, and I think they probably conducted a good investigation. But give credit where credit's due. That investigator stepped in and found some things and compelled government to look at this case again. Sandra Zamaria, I got my signed copy. Good. Thank you. I'm glad. I think Deceived is going to become really important. You can see it over my shoulder here. If you haven't ordered your Deceived book, the Daybell case is a case that is perfect for the concept of how cults can create such caustic environments. So thank you, and please, I hope you're ordering it. We really do appreciate it. So who was the first person to see Donthe the next day? What was he like? Was he nervous? I think that will come out in the trial. But again, I go back to how important that statement was made by the cellmate, who still considers himself to be Donthe's friend, by the way, is the statement of, they'll never find her body, so I can't be convicted. That is really compelling. So we think about what are the motives and means, what motivates someone in this case to commit crimes like a murder? And was it to avoid having to become a father and have to be tied or worried about responsibilities? I think the prosecution has a lot of stuff that they're going to be able to put out in a circumstantial case. So the court date is now. It's happening. It started yesterday. And think about this, folks. 8 years ago tomorrow, it was today, 8 years ago, that Kelsey Schelling discovered that she was pregnant, that she had notified her mother and the father of her baby, and that the father of the baby 8 years ago today was tweeting, "Come down and see me. I've got a special surprise for you." And a day later, she disappears from the face of the earth. Is there a story map for the Daybell last moments? If you go to profilingevil.com and hit story maps, you'll see the Daybell story map, and it will talk about the case in some pretty good detail. As far as Tammy's last moments, there are reports in there about Tammy's death, and that might answer your question. Julia Gulia, I'm glad you received your book. Thank you. Again, I don't know if the back office has a copy of that they can put up on the screen. Well, let me just grab it. So I openly say every time it is a shameless plug because it's my book, but this was a really important story and involved the rescue of 32 children in a ritualistic child sexual abuse cult. And it's available at profilingevil.com. And I really appreciate all the support on it. On Monday night, I'll have Dr. Janja Lalich, the global expert in cults, on choir practice with me. And I'll have one, maybe two of the victims, now survivors, of the Zion Society cult. So for those of you who have been reading it, it's a great time to get on and ask some of your questions. So Vanessa Overton, how do we know the cellmate wasn't offered reduced charges to testify? Well, that's interesting. Could have been. So then you have to rely on the fact that, number one, he was already in jail. So I don't know what he would be getting reduced charges on, because he was probably on. He may have gotten some reconciliation for time served or something like that. But but it is not uncommon. And this sometimes is frustrating for our community and I want to leave this question up, Helen, so just one moment, but this is sometimes frustrating for us when we think, well, I would never, associate with a criminal, and I don't want to hear from a criminal. But a lot of crimes are solved by talking to criminals who are getting a better deal because they're ratting out somebody else. And this is why it's so absolutely important that we remember cases aren't won on a single form of evidence. They're won on multiple forms of evidence that corroborate and collaborate. And so if a bad guy turns on another bad guy, I've used it, law enforcement uses it, and they'll continue to use it. The secret is if it's true, and if you can corroborate it with other forms of evidence, then why would you not take advantage of that? Helen Barnes, how do I order Deceived? Does it come in large print or ebooks? So thank you. Gosh, you order Deceived at profilingevil.com. The ebook version and the audio version will come out in a couple of months. And it will also go for those of you that are in other parts of the world and don't want to pay the expensive shipping to get it from the US. And we apologize. In a couple of months, we have worked out a deal with Amazon, and it will become available globally in paperback. But we have reserved the right with the publisher to do all of the hardbound books here. So if you want hardbound, you have to order it here. And then, of course, audio and ebook will be coming out. For those that are channel members, we actually released some of the audio Monday night on our call with channel members, and you got to hear what the audio version is coming along like. So hopefully you're taking advantage of that. Zelda, I'm with you. I'm still sobbing in my heart thinking about some of these cases, and it just drives me crazy at times. I get so frustrated thinking about the amount of victimization that goes on in the world. Angie W., are you still signing the books? We actually have an option on there when you order the book that you can pay a little upcharge to get them signed. We ended up signing, I think, the first 1,000 books, and then we've kind of rolled into this. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And we look forward to you buying that. I received a wonderful comment from someone today that said they started reading it yesterday afternoon, and at 4:00 this morning they finished because they couldn't put it down. So that was kind of exciting to hear that. I also received a message from one of the survivors of the cult, and maybe I'll just read that to you because I was pretty touched by it. She said, this was from a couple of weeks ago. The kids got the book in advance. She said, I'm halfway through. It's a good read so far. And you'll know who this is, some of you. John, thanks for that kind donation. Just want to show support to the channel. You and Chris do amazing work. Well, thank you. And it's fun to see Chris tackling his new channel. And it's fun to do this on my own. So she goes on, and you'll know exactly who this is. She says, I read the doll part with me. Reading it is like seeing my own memories. And then she goes on and talks about some things that are rather intimate and that I won't share on here. But then she said, and then I hit the moment where some things with Arvin happened. And she said, it's so weird. I hate him. and I'm having a hard time getting through this part of the book because of the memories that are coming back. And so I'm so proud of those kids for having the strength and the determination to move forward on that. Well, gosh, I've kept you a long time. Let me just see if there are any other questions. Skylar, if there's anything in the back that you think we need to pop up. It says the book is sold out. The publisher told us effective today that it is not sold out, and they'll start reshipping today. They had to do a second printing, which is great news. And yes, Jane Tonks, thank you. I am going to be the one reading the audio version, so it will be me speaking about my experience, which I guess is kind of interesting. It's really been kind of fun for me to actually read it and be able to express some of my emotion instead of typing it, because you can't just really get the emotion out when you're typing. So any updates on the Angela Green case? Not a lot happening on that. I spoke to Ellie Green just a few days ago. She's going to come on in the next couple of weeks. Ellie has transferred and is going to school in Colorado now. And I'm really excited about her opportunity there to kind of rewrite her own destiny. In the Angela Green case, we were able to provide law enforcement with some really compelling information, and that's about all I'll tell you. We continue to hope that they're able to move that case forward. And I just got a note from the back office saying that you can order the book right now. Even though it says that it's out, it's just being back ordered, and apparently they're starting to ship today or tomorrow. So you can still get the book. Please go on and order that, and we'll look forward to fulfilling those. Shannon Condella, do you see correlations between the Vallow case and the missing West Boys case? Well, one thing I don't see as a similarity is the crazy cultish, elitist, self-proclaiming philosophies. So other than the fact that it's two children and that they disappeared, I personally don't see a lot of similarity. I think there are a lot of differences in those cases. And Vallow's case, Vallow Daybell, is so complex and so interwoven with all of the other things. That's why if you go to the story maps and look at that, and you start to see all of the different tentacles that are involved there, then that will maybe help you with that. So let me just see what else we got here. All right. Well, folks, again, I'm trying to do these lives a little more often. Hopefully they're of value. There are some interesting things that have been happening in the West case, so maybe we could just chat about that for a minute. I know that tonight, It's a Crime. We'll be discussing a little bit about that case with Duty Ron, and Ron has apparently secured an interview with the chief. I don't know if that will happen or not. The chief's really busy, but we know that they took the ground penetrating radar. And if you haven't had a chance to watch my video on the ground penetrating radar and an explanation of how that works, it was posted just a day or so ago. So please go back and watch that. It's very short, but it'll give you a good idea of what's going on with that and why they did what they did. I continue to be personally a little bit nervous and concerned by the way the case is moving. But we have to just trust that law enforcement has more answers than any of us have. My plea is, if people are hearing things or learning things and it's credible, get it to the police department. Don't broadcast it on YouTube. and get it to the people that can make a difference, because what's important is finding those little boys. And if it means recovering those little boys, regardless, we need to have that piece of closure for everyone involved, and then holding anyone who's responsible. So please do that. Angie W., thank you. Ordered the book. Woohoo! Thank you. I can't wait for you to respond. And folks, if you have read Deceived or are reading it, please go and to the Profiling Evil website and start leaving your comments, your thoughts. It's really helpful. And also, I think somebody said the other day that it's needs to go to Goodreads or something like that. So if you're a Goodreads submitter, get it on there as well, because that's really helpful. And I just missed a pop-up that was there, so I apologize for whatever I missed there. So anyway, thanks for that. And let's see, Kimberly Miller, thank you. I think that's really kind of you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. There are some really amazing YouTube channels out there, and I hope the thing that sets Profiling Evil apart is I'm not into wild speculation, and I'll always try to give you my opinion thinking about it. I mean, not only did I spend much of my career as an investigator in the saddle, but I was fortunate to be trained in this process of criminal profiling. And for me, most importantly, is I served under a county attorney and as chief of staff of an attorney general's office. So I also learned to look at cases from a legal perspective. And so you're going to always find that I might be a little more reserved and a little slower at jumping out and pointing fingers. And frankly, I've never thought that was a law enforcement officer's job anyway, to point fingers. I've always thought it was to gather facts and present those. And you've often heard me say the Sherlock Holmes quote, which I think is just one of my favorite quotes, and that is that it's a capital mistake to theorize before you have all the facts, because insensibly you end up spending all of your time twisting facts to meet your theory, rather than allowing the facts to unfold and then come up with a theory. Sometimes not as exciting, doesn't make you look as cool to say, I told you so, but it certainly is the more prudent way of doing it. So the book's sold out again, and you can still order. And I just got a note from the back office. You can still order, and we expect another shipment today or tomorrow, and they will immediately start shipping. And then I think the publisher will be on top of it from there. We had a much bigger response than we expected. So to all of you, thank you so much for that. I look forward to Monday night again. Dr. Yanya Lalick, she is a cult survivor herself, a PhD professor emerita who is known around the world and has appeared on every major documentary you've ever seen, whether it's NXIVM or any of the others. She is one smart cookie. Let me read a very kind quote that she gave me for the Deceived book. She said, I can think of no more important book at this moment in our history than Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. Mike King has made a superb and vitally important contribution by exposing the abuse of women and children in that heinous cult. And this still happens far too often in the multitude of harmful groups around the world. If you want to understand coercive influence and control, then read this book. Yanya Lalick, PhD Professor Emerita of Sociology, cult educator, and author, Escaping Utopia. So there you go, Deceived. Please consider giving it a read and let me know. But she'll be great. And we'll have on one, if not two, of the survivors of the Zion Society cult to talk a little bit about their experiences there. And this part of what we're trying to build up to, which will be a podcast on the Zion Society cult later. Kelly, Bella, I'm a cult survivor. Thank you for surviving. Thank you. Deb Davis just received her book. Thank you so much, Deb. Appreciate it. And please make sure you're here Monday night. Now, the week after that, I'll have Chicago Police Chief with me on, and heck, we just got a bunch of stuff coming, so it'll be a lot of fun. Appreciate all of your support. Please consider those channel memberships, folks. They really help us in the back office to roll out these quality videos, and I'm going to continue to try to do some lives once in a while and just spend time chatting with you, because it's really fun. You can order Deceived without, even though it says it's sold out, that's going to roll over, and in the next day or two, those will start shipping again. So please consider owning Jenny or ordering. Jenny Hansen, thank you for joining up. Great to have the members. We just feel so honored. Anyone that's interested, I have been on the phone a couple of times today with Jared from Adventures with Purpose. We actually were talking about a case that we've been working on. Many of you have wondered about the vehicle that was recovered just outside of Linwood, Kansas yesterday. Everyone, the internet kind of blew up, and people were thinking it was Randy Leach's vehicle. We knew pretty early on that it wasn't. So we continue to look for Randy, and we've received some really interesting information on that case that continues to unfold. We as a quick catch up on Brian McKenzie's case, the searches didn't turn up anything in Brian's case. In that particular case, I've been in conversation directly with the police department, and we've had a number of really interesting discussions about what they're doing there. And I just believe firmly that they know what's going on in that case and are working toward resolution. Molly Miller's case, again, they were unable to find anything in that case and continue to plea for her and Colt, their recovery, and hope that you can offer help to those families. Kelbell one, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday night is choir practice. And you don't want to miss choir practice. We don't get many people to choir practice, and yet those that come, we just have a blast. So I hope you'll all consider it, because we have some pretty amazing guests and share some pretty cool information when we go through that choir practice each week. That's one of my favorite things. I hope you're watching the public records, and I hope that they are valuable to you. And of course these, and then we got some big announcements coming with podcasts that we'll start talking about pretty soon. We're gonna have a podcast that I think you'll like, and I'll be able to announce a big podcast series that I've been working on for a year in Southeast Asia that will release to the U.S. in a few months too, that I hope you'll like and that you'll join up and support. So for all of you, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Please let us know if there's anything that we can do for you personally. The profilingevil@gmail.com. The back office looks at those, and I try to look at what we have coming in and try to stay on top of that. Remember the interview or the evidence room, and don't forget the new newsletter. If you haven't signed up for the BOLO, be on the lookout. That's a place where you're going to get content that no one else will see for weeks and weeks. And it doesn't cost anything to sign up for it, but we wanted to give folks kind of a firsthand look at things from our perspective. So go to Profiling Evil and sign up for the BOLO as well. And so we'll see you Monday night. I hope you all have a great weekend, and thanks so much for your support.